Hey everyone, and welcome back to the KenkoVibe podcast. I'm Ethan Reed,
And I'm Grace Morgan.
and we are ready for another deep dive.
Absolutely.
Today we're talking about the health impacts of excess weight.
That's right.
And I have to say, researching for this one really blew my mind a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there are a lot of things I didn't realize about how carrying extra weight really affects your health.
Well, it's not just about how you look.
Right.
There are some pretty serious health consequences that come with carrying excess weight.
So just how many health problems are linked to having a few extra pounds?
Well, we're talking over 50
50?
different health conditions that are associated with being overweight or obese.
See, this is what I'm talking about. I knew it wasn't, good for you.
Right.
A 50. That's more than I have fingers and toes combined.
It's true.
What kinds of things are we talking about here?
Well, of course, you've got the big ones like heart disease, stroke, and type 2 diabetes.
Right.
But it goes way beyond that.
Like what?
Even things like gout and gallstones, which you might not necessarily think of as being related to weight.
Gallstones.
They're on that list.
Wow.
So it's not just about fitting into your favorite pair of jeans.
Right.
We're talking about a whole cascade of potential problems.
It's a big deal.
Yeah.
And, one of the things I've always wondered about is the link between weight and mental health,
Okay.
especially depression.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, does depression lead to weight gain, or is it the other way around?
Yeah.
Or could it be both?
It's a great question, and actually it can work both ways.
Really?
Yeah, studies have shown that obese individuals actually have a 55% higher risk of developing depression
Wow.
compared to people who are at a healthy weight.
Okay.
And on the flip side,
Yeah.
depressed individuals are 58% more likely to become obese.
So it's a two-way street.
Yeah, it's a real chicken or the egg kind of situation.
So, but what's the connection there?
Well, there are a few things going on. For one, both depression and obesity seem to involve changes in brain chemistry, particularly how we respond to stress.
So that makes sense. Like you're stressed, you eat more,
Right.
you gain weight.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's got to be more to it than just stress eating.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
There are also psychological components to consider.
Like what?
Well, think about the pressure from societal beauty standards.
Yeah. It's tough out there.
It can really impact someone's self-esteem, potentially leading to depression.
Yeah, it's a vicious cycle. You feel down.
Right.
So you eat, you gain weight,
Yeah, and then...
and the society tells you you're not good enough.
Exactly, and that just makes you feel worse.
And then you feel even worse, and then you eat more.
It's a tough cycle to break.
Yeah.
There's also the physical discomfort that can come with being overweight.
Okay.
You're experiencing aches and pains, or you just feel uncomfortable in your own body.
Yeah.
These things can definitely impact your mood and make it even harder to break out of those unhealthy patterns.
It's all connected.
It really is.
Our physical health, our mental health.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of physical discomfort, let's talk about sleep apnea for a second.
Okay.
I have to admit, I kind of always thought it was just snoring.
Right.
But researching for this episode has made me realize it's a much bigger deal
It's serious.
than I ever thought it was.
It is. And it is more common among people who are overweight or obese.
Okay.
And you're right. It's more than just snoring.
Right.
It's those moments where you actually stop breathing during sleep
Oh, yeah, I've heard about that.
and then suddenly wake up gasping for air.
That sounds terrifying.
It can be scary.
What causes that?
Well, when you have excess fat, particularly around your neck,
Right.
it can constrict your airway,
Okay.
making it difficult to breathe properly during sleep.
So your body's like literally struggling for air while you're trying to rest.
Exactly.
I can see why that wouldn't just affect your sleep quality, but could have much wider health implications.
Absolutely. And sleep apnea doesn't just leave you feeling tired the next day.
Yeah.
It also increases your risk of high blood pressure,
Oh, wow.
heart attack and stroke.
So we've talked about depression, we talked about sleep apnea, there's a whole bunch of other things. But let's talk about the big one, heart health.
Okay.
We all know being overweight puts a strain on the heart.
It does.
But how bad is it, really?
It's a very serious concern. Excess weight forces your heart to work overtime,
Okay.
just to pump blood throughout your body.
Right.
And over time, that strain leads to high blood pressure.
Mm-hmm.
You might know it as hypertension,
Okay.
which puts a lot of stress on your blood vessels.
So it's not just your heart that's affected, it's
Yeah.
like your whole circulatory system.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And all that pressure and stress can lead to something called atherosclerosis,
Atherosclerosis.
which is the hardening of your arteries.
Okay.
And it's a major contributor to heart attacks, strokes, and even chronic kidney disease.
Wow. So how much does being overweight actually increase your risk of heart disease?
Well, research shows that being overweight increases your risk of heart disease by 32%.
32%.
And for those who are obese, that risk jumps to 81%.
Oh my gosh.
That's a huge difference.
So even if you're not, drastically overweight,
right?
those extra pounds are still having a big impact.
Absolutely. And here's the thing. Even a small amount of excess weight, regardless of your blood pressure or cholesterol levels, can still increase your risk of heart disease.
So it's like this hidden risk factor that you might not even realize you have.
It really is.
Yeah.
Now, shifting gears a bit, let's talk about another major health concern, diabetes.
Oh, you mean the obesity epidemic?
That's right.
I just learned that term, and it really struck me.
Yeah.
How closely these two conditions are linked.
They're very closely linked. Did you know that 90% of people with type 2 diabetes are either overweight or obese?
90%.
90%.
That's crazy. I mean, I knew there was a connection.
It's a strong connection.
But wow.
Yeah, and it all comes down to how obesity affects the way our bodies process sugar.
Wow.
Essentially, obesity can lead to something called insulin resistance.
Right.
And insulin is like a key that unlocks your cells, allowing sugar to enter and be used for energy.
Okay.
But when you have insulin resistance, it's like those locks get rusty and the key doesn't work as well.
Okay.
So as a result, sugar builds up in your blood.
So your body's making the insulin, but it's not being used effectively.
Exactly. And over time, that high blood sugar can damage your blood vessels and nerves.
Right.
And that can lead to the development of type 2 diabetes.
And we know uncontrolled diabetes has some pretty bad consequences.
It does.
Yeah.
We're talking about serious complications like kidney failure, blindness, even amputations.
Wow. That really puts into perspective how crucial it is to manage our weight
It is.
and prevent these conditions from developing in the first place.
Absolutely. Now, it's not just about individual conditions either. Have you heard of metabolic syndrome?
Metabolic syndrome? No, I don't think so.
So this is essentially a cluster of conditions
Okay.
that occur together, and it increases your risk of heart disease, stroke, and diabetes.
Okay, so what is that? What does that involve?
Well, think of it as a group of risk factors.
Okay.
If you have 3 or more of the following, you're considered to have metabolic syndrome.
Okay.
A large waist circumference,
Okay.
high triglycerides, low good cholesterol, high blood pressure, and high fasting blood sugar.
So even if you don't have like a full-blown diagnosis of any one of those conditions,
Right.
just having several of those together is still a major red flag.
Exactly. It's like a domino effect.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, obesity is often at the root of many of these issues.
This is some pretty intense information.
It is.
I think we need to give our listeners a moment to process everything we've covered so far.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
So don't go anywhere, because when we come back, we'll continue our deep dive into the impact of excess weight.
That's right.
We're going to be exploring the link between obesity and cancer, as well as the effects on lifespan. And we'll even break down how obesity affects nearly every system in the body.
Looking forward to it.
Stay tuned. Welcome back, everyone. We're continuing our deep dive into the impacts of excess weight on health.
And unfortunately, the news doesn't get any lighter as we move on to the topic of cancer.
Oh, no.
Yeah, obesity is actually considered the second leading cause of cancer death, right behind smoking.
Wow, second leading cause. That's a pretty big deal.
It is.
I mean, you're not just talking about one or two specific types of cancer, are we?
Nope. Research has linked higher BMIs to an increased risk of dying from all sorts of cancers.
Like what kinds of cancers?
Well, we're talking about cancers of the esophagus, colon, rectum, liver, gallbladder, pancreas, kidney,
Wow.
in both men and women.
Okay.
And for men specifically, excess weight increases the risk of stomach and prostate cancer.
Okay.
And for women, it's breast, uterine, cervical, and ovarian cancer.
Wow, that's a lot of cancers.
It is a long list.
So this really drives home how important it is to maintain a healthy weight. And what's even more concerning is that obesity can sometimes lead to delayed cancer screenings.
Sure, right. Because if someone is uncomfortable or has had negative experiences with healthcare providers because of their weight, they might be more likely to put off those important screenings, and that can have serious consequences.
Because early detection is key.
Exactly.
It's so important.
It is.
Well, this is a good reminder that we need to feel empowered to advocate for ourselves and seek the care that we need, regardless of our weight
Absolutely.
or any other factor.
100%.
So now, shifting gears a bit, let's talk about how excess weight impacts lifespan.
Okay.
You know, we all felt that sluggishness when we're carrying a few extra pounds.
Right.
Simple things like walking or lifting or even just getting out of a chair can feel more difficult.
Sure.
But we're talking about more than just, feeling tired, right?
Right.
We're talking about how excess weight actually affects how long we live.
Exactly. And The research on this is pretty clear. Studies have shown that death rates are 40% higher among overweight individuals in midlife.
Okay.
And for those classified as obese, the death rate is 2 to 3 times higher.
That's a lot. That's a really big difference.
It is. Makes you think.
It does. And, the studies found that the risk of death keeps increasing with body size.
Oh, really?
Yeah. For individuals with a BMI between 40 and 50, the risk of death was 250% higher.
That is a huge number.
It is very significant.
That's a wake-up call, for sure.
For sure.
But I think it's important to emphasize here that you don't have to lose a massive amount of weight
Right.
to start seeing benefits.
Absolutely. Even losing just 5–10% of your starting weight can have a significant positive impact on your health.
Okay, so what kind of changes can people expect to see with even that kind of modest weight loss?
Well, for one, even modest weight loss can lead to a significant reduction in blood pressure.
Okay.
In some cases, it can even eliminate the need for medication altogether.
Wow, that's great. There's a study done on individuals at risk for type 2 diabetes, and those who lost just 7% of their body weight and started exercising 30 minutes a day reduced their risk of developing diabetes by almost 60%.
60%? That's amazing.
It's a big difference.
So it's really encouraging to know that even small sustainable changes
Right.
can have such a big impact.
Absolutely. It's all about making those lifestyle changes that you can stick with over the long haul.
Right?
Crash diets and crazy workout regimens are rarely sustainable.
Right. It's about finding what works for you.
Exactly.
So we've talked about how excess weight affects specific conditions like heart disease, diabetes, cancer.
Right.
But it doesn't just target those areas, right?
Yeah.
It's more like a whole body issue.
You're absolutely right. Obesity affects nearly every system in the body.
So we're talking like the brain,
Yes.
blood vessels, heart, liver, gallbladder, bones, joints, skin, even our mental well-being.
All of the above.
Okay, so let's unpack that a little bit.
Okay.
How exactly does obesity impact each of those systems?
Well, starting with the nervous system, we know that obesity increases the risk of stroke
Okay,
because it can lead to blockages in the blood flow to the brain.
makes sense.
And as we discussed earlier, the respiratory system is impacted by the constricted airways
Right.
caused by excess fat around the neck. That's what increases the risk of sleep apnea.
Right, so it's not just about how you look or how you feel, it's about how your body is functioning on a very basic level.
That's right.
So what about the digestive system? How is that affected by carrying extra weight?
Well, there are a few key ways. First, obesity increases the risk of developing GER,
Okay.
which is gastroesophageal reflux disease. That's when stomach acid backs up into the esophagus. It's not a fun time.
No, it's not.
Obesity is also linked to a higher chance of developing gallstones,
Gallstones.
which are hardened deposits in the gallbladder that can cause pain and often require surgery to remove.
Ouch.
And then there's the liver. The liver can actually be damaged by the buildup of fat,
Really?
leading to scarring and potentially even liver failure.
Wow, that's scary.
It is serious stuff.
So we've talked about the nervous system, respiratory system, digestive system. What about the cardiovascular system?
Right. Well, as we touched on earlier, obesity puts an enormous strain on the heart.
Okay.
It has to work much harder to pump blood throughout the body, which leads to high blood pressure.
Right.
And high blood pressure, in turn, causes those arteries to harden and narrow, increasing the risk of heart attack, stroke, and even chronic kidney disease.
It's like one problem just leads to another and another and another.
It's a chain reaction.
And we can't forget about the endocrine system.
Right.
That's the system responsible for producing hormones.
Uh-huh.
And obesity can really disrupt that delicate balance.
Yeah, we talked before about how obesity can lead to insulin resistance,
Right.
which prevents sugar from being properly absorbed by the cells.
Right.
That's what elevates blood sugar levels and increases the risk of developing type 2 diabetes with all of its potential complications.
It's like a domino effect, one thing knocking into the next.
Exactly. Now, moving on to the reproductive system, we know that obesity can make it more difficult to get pregnant
Okay.
and can lead to complications during pregnancy.
So we've covered the nervous, respiratory, digestive, cardiovascular, and endocrine systems.
We have.
And we touched on the reproductive system. What about the skeletal and muscular system?
Yeah, good question.
How does excess weight impact our bones and muscles?
Well, obesity actually weakens both bones and muscles.
Clearly.
There's a term for it. It's called osteosarcopenic obesity.
Osteosarcopenic obesity.
It's a mouthful,
It is a mouthful.
but it's a serious concern
Wow.
because it increases the risk of fractures and can lead to physical disability.
Oh, wow.
And on top of that, all that extra weight puts a lot of strain on the joints, causing pain and stiffness.
So it really is a whole body issue.
It really is.
We've covered a lot of ground here, but I know we have a few more systems to go.
We do.
Specifically, the integumentary system,
Okay.
which is our skin, and the often overlooked impact of obesity on mental health.
Yes, very important.
So those are big topics, and we'll dive into those right after we come back from a quick break. So stay tuned. Welcome back to the KenkoVibe podcast. We're wrapping up our deep dive into the impact of excess weight on our health. And before the break, we were talking about how obesity affects nearly every system in the body. We covered a lot, but we still need to talk about the integumentary system, that's your skin, and the often overlooked impact on mental health.
That's right. It's easy to get caught up in thinking about weight just in terms of how it makes us look, but it really goes so much deeper than that. It affects us on a cellular level, impacting everything from our organs to our skin.
Right. So let's talk about skin. I know that some people experience stretch marks when they gain or lose weight. But are there other ways that obesity can affect the skin?
Yeah, definitely. You might see rashes developing in the folds of the skin, which can be uncomfortable and sometimes even painful. And there's also a condition called acanthosis nigricans.
Acanthosis nigricans?
Yeah, it's a mouthful.
It is a mouthful.
But it causes a darkening and thickening of the skin, often in areas like the neck, armpits, and groin.
That's interesting. I've never heard of that before. Is it just a cosmetic issue, or is it a sign of something more serious?
It can definitely be a sign of underlying health issues. Acanthosis nigricans is often linked to insulin resistance,
Okay.
so it can be an early warning sign of conditions like type 2 diabetes.
So it's another example of how our skin can kind of give us clues about what's going on inside.
Exactly. Our skin is our largest organ,
That's right. I always forget that.
and it can tell us a lot about our overall health.
Okay, so we've talked about skin. Now let's shift gears and talk about the impact of obesity on mental health.
All right.
I think this is something that we often overlook.
Definite.
You know, we touched on the link between obesity and depression earlier,
Yeah.
but there's a lot more to it than just that.
There is. It's not just about, feeling down.
Right.
Obesity can really affect someone's self-esteem and body image, which can lead to a whole range of mental health challenges.
And I think about, the media and how it constantly bombards us with images
Oh, absolutely.
promoting unrealistic beauty standards.
It's everywhere.
And that can be really damaging, especially for someone who's already struggling with their weight.
Right. It can make you feel inadequate or ashamed,
Absolutely.
even lead to self-hatred.
Yeah, and it's not just about the media either, right?
No, there's a lot of societal stigma and discrimination associated with obesity, too.
Exactly.
People are often judged or ridiculed or even denied opportunities because of their weight.
It's not right, but it happens.
It does, and that kind of weight stigma can be incredibly isolating, and it can contribute to feelings of anxiety, depression, and social withdrawal.
Yeah, it's a tough thing to deal with, and it's a reminder that health isn't just about our physical well-being.
Right.
Our mental and emotional well-being are just as important.
Absolutely.
And, those things are often very closely intertwined.
Couldn't agree more. It's about addressing the whole person, not just their weight.
Absolutely. Well, this has been an incredibly eye-opening conversation.
It has.
We've really covered a lot today.
We have.
From the impact of excess weight on individual organs to its effects on our overall lifespan and even our mental health.
Right.
It's been heavy stuff at times, but really important to talk about.
I agree. While the health consequences of obesity are very serious, it's important to remember that it's a manageable condition.
Good point.
With the right support and resources, people can make positive changes
Absolutely.
to improve their health and well-being.
It's not about shame or blame. It's about empowering people to take control of their health.
There's so much we can do through a combination of diet, exercise, and lifestyle modifications.
Right.
And remember, you don't have to make drastic changes overnight.
Yeah. Small steps.
Even small, sustainable changes can add up to big results over time.
So true. Well, thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us today. This has been an incredibly informative deep dive into the impact of excess weight on our health.
It's been my pleasure. I always enjoy talking about this stuff.
And to all of our listeners out there, thank you for joining us on this journey. We hope you found this exploration of excess weight and its impact on health to be insightful and empowering.
We do.
We encourage you to share what you've learned with your friends and family. And if you found this episode valuable, don't forget to subscribe to the KenkoVibe podcast for more deep dives into all things health and wellness.
And be sure to leave us a comment and let us know what you thought. We love hearing from you.
That's right. We appreciate your feedback. Until next time, this is Ethan Reed,
And Grace Morgan.
signing off from the KenkoVibe podcast.